Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Austin Petersen here, former presidential candidate for the Libertarian Party. Thanks very much for tuning in to the live stream tonight. Today is Wednesday, March the 29th, and tonight we're going to be talking about a topic that's near and dear to my heart as the owner of a company that publishes news frequently. This is sometimes an accusation that gets lobbed at me. Fake news, fake news. Usually the type of thing that comes across people's desks when we're doing real honest journalism requires multiple layers of scrutiny. So I'm a former television producer at the Fox Business Network, and whenever we had a question about something, we had a team of investigative journalists, professionals, and people who were dedicated to fact-checking for us, and they call that the brain room at Fox. But of course, once I started up my own journalistic news org, I didn't have those resources to be able to go out and discover what it was that people use in order to confirm many of their sources. So I had to start from square one. And I learned very quickly that there are some tips that you can use to try and determine what fake news is and what fake news isn't. So we're going to distinguish between that, but the thing that brought this to my attention today, it was a headline that came out in Politico that 6 in 10 Americans think that traditional news outlets report fake news. So we're talking about traditional news outlets here. A majority of the American people think that traditional news outlets report fake news. So I want to read this article to you from Politico. Then we're going to take a look at some of the tips that I've pulled up for you from NPR in order for you to be able to be better internet sleuths to discover what is fake news. And then I have a terrific example of a fake news article that fooled well over 30,000 people, and I think that you're all going to get a big kick out of it. It's really funny, so I'll read that to you all last. A majority of Americans believe that traditional news outlets publish fake news reports, and Republicans are more likely to believe that fake news is being pushed to advance an agenda, according to a Monmouth University poll released today. The poll, which was conducted by phone during the first week of March, found that 80% of respondents believed online news sources reported fake news either regularly or occasionally. 54% of respondents, including a majority of Republicans, Independents, and Democrats, said that fake news reports online were published on purpose in order to advance a specific agenda. Respondents had only slightly more trust in traditional news outlets, with 60% of respondents believing that traditional news outlets reported fake news either regularly or occasionally, and 40% saying that they believe traditional news outlets reported fake news on purpose to push an agenda. Now, before I continue finishing this, just remember there was a bunch of fake news that was pushed in traditional news outlets that was meant to advance an agenda. It's not like there isn't a precedent for things like this. So whenever people will say, oh, something is fake news, a lot of times people are saying that because they don't agree with the news that's being pushed. And when it comes from traditional news outlets, historically, people had more trust in it. But according to this new poll that was released today, a majority of people think that traditional news outlets publish fake news. And before you roll your eyes at that, just consider during the run-up to the war in Iraq, we had all sorts of fake news reports that were coming out and being pushed as legitimate. As a matter of fact, it's believed that President George W. Bush acted because of some of these reports that were pushed at mainstream news sources. Consider 1991, the pretext for the invasion of Iraq. One of the fake news reports that was being pushed as legitimate was that the Iraqis were breaking into Kuwaiti hospitals and taking babies out of incubators and slamming on the ground and murdering the babies. And this was literal war propaganda that was used that had no substantiation in truth, but was used for the pretext to war. So fake news is a dangerous phenomenon. We're going to talk about another fake news phenomenon in just a moment, and then we're going to give you guys some finding tips so that you won't fall for fake news. 17% of respondents in this said that they believe fake news was reported on by traditional outlets by accident or because of poor fact-checking. That's probably true. And about a third of respondents said they did not believe that major outlets reported fake news. So some people just believe everything that the mainstream media says, but only a third of the respondents. Still, a third is a lot of people. Across the board, self-identified Republican respondents were more suspicious of the motivations behind the publication of fake news in traditional media and online. 55% of Republican respondents believed that fake news was reported on intentionally by traditional news outlets to advance a specific agenda, compared to 41% of independents and 24% of Democrats. So let's think about that for just a moment. So 55% of Republican respondents think that fake news is intentionally reported on, compared to 41% of independents and then 24% of Democrats. Now, the way that these numbers, if you break it down, it seems as if that Democrats or people might say, oh well, Republicans are dumb or they're conspiracy theorists in a sense. But considering the fact that we have seen fake news being pushed to advance an agenda in the mainstream media, are the Republicans really the dumb ones here? Maybe not, because maybe the Democrats are the ones who believe everything that they read in the newspapers. Maybe the Democrats, the 24% of Democrats, are the ones who believe that the news is legit. So the numbers can sometimes be biased. It can be skewed to fit your biases. So you got to be careful about engaging in what we like to call confirmation bias, which is something else that we're going to talk about when we get into the news tips. A plurality of respondents said that they did trust news from ABC News, Fox News, and MSNBC more than they trusted news from President Donald Trump. Republicans were far more likely to trust Trump over ABC News and MSNBC, and can you blame them? I mean, MSNBC, come on, guys. And about 44% of Republican respondents said that they trusted Trump and Fox News equally. More than 80% of respondents said that Trump had a worse relationship with the news media than previous administrations, and 58% said that the relationship that Trump has with the media is hurting his image. Probably true. Last paragraph here. Conversely, 51% of respondents said that the news media's image was negatively impacted by its relationship with Trump. So a majority of people think that the way that the news media is acting in accordance with Trump, the way that they're acting with him is negatively impacting their reporting. 39% said the news media's image was not affected by its relationship with Trump, and 6% said that its image had improved. Now, on my audio podcast this morning, I brought up a topic which is pretty controversial just because it involves the fact-checking the wisdom of the crowds. And one of the things that I discovered working in media, working in mainstream media, working in alternative media, is that it's very popular and very easy to blame the media for bad politics, right? And the reason why everybody likes to jump on this whole fake news bandwagon and attack mainstream news outlets, attack alternative news outlets, it isn't just because many of them do report inaccurate sources. And many of these alternative news sites do push just BS lies and BS slander. And so the thing with the mentality here is that it's much easier for people to blame the media for bad politics than to blame themselves. Why do I say that? The reason why I say that is because the truth is that we get the type of media that we want, we ask for. And you're not gonna, when you hear that, your confirmation bias is going nuts. You're saying, no, I don't like this. I hate the media. Maybe you don't watch it because you're smarter and you watch the Freedom Report podcast. So you want to get some objective, if biased, reporting. But I'm open about my biases, but I do try and be fair and critical and honest and objective and try and offer some opposing opinions, some things that disagree with me. But most people don't do that. Most people engage in confirmation bias. So they're only reading sources that they only are reading sources that agree with them. Somebody asked me in Colorado last weekend, what news sources do I read? Well, the truth is that I pulled a Sarah Palin there and said, I read all of them. But the truth is that I do. I read the Washington Post, the New York Times, the New York Post. I read news magazines that like Newsweek and Time and all of these different agencies in order to make sure that I'm not confirming my biases. I like to read things of people that disagree with me because that's really the only way that you can learn things. But the truth is that the reason why we get this media, it's not just like, well, take Russia Today, for example. Russia Today is an example of us, is not an example of this, of us getting the media that we deserve, because that's state funded, right? That's a state funded news agency. So you should be extremely skeptical of any news agency that's funded by the government. But when it comes to the free market news agencies, when it comes to ABC or Fox or even MSNBC, you have to remember that the only way that those media outlets can survive is based on your viewership. So when you complain about bad media, when you complain about media negatively impacting politics, you have to remember that this is the media that we're paying for. We're buying these cable packages. We're watching these news reports. We're watching these news agents. We're buying these newspapers. And so it's difficult for us to think about the fact that when we see things that we don't like in the media, well, that's because the people are watching it. Now, here's an interesting little story that a lot of people don't know. But when you want to talk about fake news, during the run-up to the Constitutional Convention, of course, we had the Founding Fathers were all working together to try and build a new government when they were working under the Articles of Confederation. Now, during this period, there was a newspaper that was founded with the sole purpose of libeling Thomas Jefferson. And that newspaper still exists today. So that newspaper was created with the sole explicit purpose of bashing someone and their ideas. This has been going on since the founding of the American Republic. Does anybody who's watching this now know what that newspaper is? It's the New York Post. And if you read the New York Post, you're going to get a very Hamiltonian style and tone. It's not, the New York Post is not quite a tabloid, but it does have some tabloid aspects because they know how to do good business. You know, they put like a sexy woman on the cover, or they put like very provocative photographs on it. And the New York Daily News, which is the sort of liberal version of the New York Post, does the exact same thing. But the New York Post was founded by Alexander Hamilton. It was founded for the purpose of spreading BS about Thomas Jefferson. So don't be surprised that we still have this problem when it comes to fake news or news set up for an agenda. But at least the New York Post and other news agencies operate on a for-profit basis, just like the Libertarian Republic does. It operates on a for-profit basis. If I wasn't providing you news and stories and information for the last 3 years since I've been in business that you all wanted, if you weren't paying attention to me right now, like for example, when I click play ad, just now, some of you are watching an advertisement. And if you stay to the end of this advertisement that's playing for some of you right now, then that means that you're supporting me. So if you don't like me and you just watch the ad that played on YouTube, well, congratulations. You're perpetuating the type of media that you don't want. So even if you're watching right now and you're a hater, well, haters are paying my bills too. And that's how the media works, is that they'll get you to watch something even if you hate it, because they know that hate works just as well for ratings as love. How do you think that Cash Me Outside, how about that? Well, she's got her own television show right now. That's not because of some big agenda pushed on us by the Illuminati or the conspiracy of the global elites. The globalists are trying to the globalists are trying to brainwash our kids. No, that's not what's happening. The reason why the Cash Me Outside girl, how about that, has her own show is because the American people want it. The American people, whether they say they want it or not, are paying attention and giving money because they're based on their news. All right, so moving on. How do we actually spot fake news? One tip for you guys, pay attention to the domain and the URL. Established news agencies usually own their own domains, right? So the libertarianrepublic.com. They should have a pretty standard look that you're familiar with, although sometimes there is spoofing. Sites with such endings like .com, .co should make you raise your eyebrows and tip you off that you need to dig around more to see if they can be trusted. This is true even when the news site looks professional and has semi-recognizable logos. For example, abcnews.com is a legitimate news source, but abcnews.com.co is not, despite its similar appearance. It's very common that you'll see a mainstream news site and then another spoof website will come up, publish some satire, publish a conspiracy theory, publish some fake news. So take a look at the domain of the website that you're reading the news site on there. And if it says .com, it's more likely to be legitimate, although it's not a guarantee, than a website that has .com.co. Another way to do this is to read the About Us section. Now, the Libertarian Republic does this. Most sites will have a lot of information about the news outlet, the company that runs it, members of its leadership, and the mission and ethics statement behind an organization. The language used here is straightforward. If it's melodramatic and it seems overblown, you should be skeptical. Also, you should be able to find out more information about the organization's leaders in places other than the site. So let's take a real quick look at this. I'll go ahead and pull this up for you so you guys can see what we do over the Libertarian Republic so that we can establish the type of credibility that we'd like to see. So take a look. Here we have the Libertarian Republic, and up here you can see we have, not only do we have a meet the team, but we have a privacy policy. And when you click on this, you can see I'm probably going to get some ads. That's what you get. But you can see the Libertarian Republic, we have a very clear mission statement. We say who the editor-in-chief is, the great Cody Fairfield, as well as me, who I am, and what I'm all about right there, and my information. And then right here, you can see the team. So this is a good way for you to know who you're getting your news from. You can find bios on each of our writers, as well as links to their Twitter account. And this is a way for you to be able to distinguish and identify what is fake news and what is not. Don't we have a nice, beautiful website? We do. I love the Libertarian Republic, and I hope you do too. So, coming back. Oh, here I am. Had to pop that sweet little logo in there. All right, so the next tip for you guys, look at the quotes in a story, or rather look at the lack of quotes, right? Most publications have multiple sources in each story who are professionals and have expertise in the fields that they talk about. If it's a serious or controversial issue, there are more likely to be quotes and lots of them. Okay? Look for professors or other academics who can speak to the research they've done. And if they're talking about research, look up those studies. Next, look at who said them. Then, see who said the quotes and what they said. Are they a reputable source with a title that you can verify through a quick Google search? Say you're looking at a story and it says President Obama said he wanted to take everyone's guns away. And then there's a quote. Obama is an official who has almost everything he says recorded and archived. There are transcripts for pretty much any address or speech that he's given. Google those quotes. See what the speech was about, who he was addressing, and when it happened. Even if he did an exclusive interview with the publication, that same quote will be referenced in other news stories, saying he said it while talking about the original publication. One of the things that we have a problem with in the news sphere is that we'll have alternative facts, or we'll have fake quotes published. This is actually a big deal with Thomas Jefferson quotes, right? There are so many fake Thomas Jefferson quotes out there, and the libertarian movement is so guilty when it comes to spreading these. I think before I started working in a mainstream news organization, I used to be guilty of that too. Now I'm very careful about publishing quotes, just because you know somebody's going to fact check you in the comments, which is the next one. Check the comments. Now, a lot of these fake and misleading stories are shared on social media platforms. Headlines are meant to get the reader's attention, but they're also supposed to accurately reflect what the story is about. Lately, that hasn't been the case. Headlines often write in exaggerated language with the intention of being misleading, and then attached to those stories that are about a completely different topic, or they're just not true. And that's the true definition of clickbait, right? And a lot of times people will just accuse me of publishing clickbait because maybe the headline is expository, maybe the headline is big and blaring. But the reason why it's not clickbait is because I demand journalistic integrity on behalf of the people who write for us, and I make sure that they have to source their claims with as much facts and research as they can. If they can't prove a claim, they have to use the type of wiggle words that reporters are allowed to use, like allegedly or reportedly and things like that. But if you check the comments, most frequently, yeah, you'll see people saying, oh, fake news, fake news, fake news, if they don't like something. But oftentimes, if you post something like a fake Thomas Jefferson quote, like a good example would be, in matters of style, swim with the current. In matters of principle, stand like a rock. Or another one that's been falsely attributed to Thomas Jefferson. Those who hammer their swords into plows will plow for those who do not. Or those who hammer their guns into plows will plow for those who do not. And that was actually misattributed by a libertarian author in a book that was self-published about a couple of decades ago. So if you publish a Thomas Jefferson quote and it's fake, I guarantee you're going to have somebody on you, maybe even me, coming in and fact-checking you. It's very easy. Monticello actually publishes a list of spurious quotations on their website. So if you ever want to double check a Thomas Jefferson quote, you can go to monticello.org. That's Monticello, Monticello.org, Monticello.org. constitutes.org, and they've got a great resource there for you all if you ever want to do some fact-checking on fake Thomas Jefferson quotes. Next, reverse image search. Okay, now this is a little interesting tool that a lot of people don't know, because this is something that if you see an image on a website, you can right-click on it, and there is a Google image search option in pretty much everybody's browsers or computers that you can use. It's a reverse image search that you can use to find the origin of a photo. A picture should be accurate in illustrating what the story is about, but that often doesn't happen. If people who write fake news stories don't even leave their homes or interview anyone for the stories, it's unlikely they take their own pictures. Do a little detective work and do a reverse search for the image on Google. You can do this by right-clicking on the image and choosing to search Google for it. If the image is appearing on a lot of stories about many different topics, there's a good chance it's not actually an image of what it says it was on the first story. Those tips are just a start at determining what type of news an article is. And of course, don't forget, there's also a place for, and we'll get to the final subject here, satire. Satirical publications exist and they do serve a purpose, but they are usually clearly listed as an exaggeration or as a false or humorous story. And some of the more well-known sites are things like The Onion or Clickhole, for example, and they use satire to talk about current events. Now, if people don't understand that, and they frequently don't, they might share these articles after reading them in the literal sense. Now, if this happens, or if you see your friend sharing fake news, be a friend, kindly tell them that it's not real. But don't shy away from these conversations, even if they might become uncomfortable, as everyone has to help fix the fake news problem. So, let's take a look at fake news, a perfect example of fake news, because we have an article on the Libertarian Republic that we published that went viral that I think you all are going to get a big, hilarious kick at. Now, take a look at this. This is an article. Now, this should be your first indication that we have fake news here. Take a look. Breaking. Ron Paul endorses Ted Cruz for president. Okay, so your first indication that this might not be legit, right? Ron Paul endorses Ted Cruz for president. Now, if you know anything about Ron Paul, you've got to know that that is definitely not fake news. Now, what could possibly be your second indication that this might be satire? Well, your second indication, look at the date of publication. Anybody notice something interesting about that date? Yes, child. April 1st. Now, if you got past the first and the second one and you didn't realize that, of course, your third indication might be a political comedy tag, right? And look at this, 30,000 people read this story, and we got a ton of people who were upset at the Libertarian Republic because on April 1st, we got, look at that, 52,000 shares. Amazing, absolutely amazing how big this article went. Now, it was a fantastic piece by Josh Gukert, who went through all of the amazing tropes and libertarian outrages. Look, Paul has expressed particular outrage at his son. See, he's saying that Rand Paul went on to say that he knew Rand was not a true libertarian, and he can't understand why Rand endorsed Mitt Romney in 2012 and Mitch McConnell in 2014. It doesn't make any sense to me, said Ron Paul. It's almost as if he's trying to create inroads with leadership so that he can use their help in the future in order to advance a more libertarian agenda. But that can't be it. Paul's expressed particular outrage his son has not yet taken any action to eliminate public roads, said Paul. All the while, these statists love their roads, and Rand hasn't done a single thing about it. How are we supposed to be free when our commerce passageways are funded with blood money? When the interview inquired as to why this was such significance, public roads are a fairly minor infringement upon liberty, which are almost universally agreed on. Paul went on a minor tangent, mockingly repeating over and over, "My roads, my roads." The former congressman also decried Senator Paul's appearances at multiple Republican-hosted Lincoln Day dinners over the years, calling President Abraham Lincoln a tyrant and criticizing his decision to go to battle in the War of Northern Aggression. Paul went on to say that no true libertarian would ever attend such a gathering unless he were adorned with the Confederate flag. Now, some of those things, of course, you mix the humor with what could sound like it might be true with a lot of BS in order to create satire. And that's the thing. Just like my old hometown, my old home state boy, Mark Twain famously said, a lie will go around the world twice before the truth has time to put on its shoes. Thank you very much for tuning in to the Freedom Report live stream tonight, ladies and gentlemen. I love y'all. You guys make me so happy. And I know you're sad that I can't stick to my regular schedule. That's because, Lord, I'm a traveling man. And tomorrow I head to Philadelphia. I'll be appearing at Swarthmore College. And that is going to happen on Friday. You'll see me at Swarthmore. Then Saturday, I'll be speaking at the Mid-Atlantic Liberty Festival. Then a quick stop back here in Kansas City. The next day, I'm out to Los Angeles, getting some California love. Heading to the Dave Rubin Show. Going to be talking to Dave Rubin about libertarianism and all things freedom out there. So I know you guys love the Rubin Report, and the Rubin Report is not fake news. So I hope you guys are going to enjoy the upcoming interviews. Lots of exciting things happening. If you want to find out more about where I'm at and you want to see me speak, I'm also going to be speaking at the not the Yale conference, but I'll be speaking to a Yale group in California on the 5th, on April 5th at Cal State Fullerton. If you want more information on that, go to my Facebook page, click on the events, and RSVP. Hope to see you all there. Stay free.